All right, welcome to the third edition of Entrepreneur Liftoff webinar. This is a monthly webinar hosted by the Woodinville Chamber. I am the host, Danny Chirku, and I will be interviewing a couple of amazing people today. And we'll talk more about our guests in a minute. But first, I just like to go through some housekeeping stuff. So with what I'd like to do is show some slides, get the context going of what we're going to do, and then take the slides off, and it's just a conversation, and just take it from there. So again, this is brought to you by Woodinville Chamber. I'm going to have in a minute, I'm going to have the marketing director, Kimberly, jump on the microphone and actually talk a little bit more about Woodinville Chamber and how to become a member. I'm a member myself. I've been loving it and enjoying it. It's a great community. We've partnered up to create this brand new concept of putting value out to entrepreneurs and small business owners in the Seattle area, specifically in the East Side Seattle areas, because we're all trying to grow our businesses and we're all looking for the one thing that's going to get us unstuck or over to the next stage. So why not bring a community together, put it on YouTube? So actually, this webinar is going to be recorded and uploaded to the YouTube channel for the Chamber. Your partners, colleagues, circle of network can actually watch the video at any time. So this video is going to be uploaded in a couple of days and should be accessible to everyone. Today, we're going to be interviewing Nancy Balin. Now, Nancy is the founder of Jaimeson Jones Memorial Scholarship. She's going to tell us a little bit more about that in a minute. She is a chamber member. So welcome, Nancy. And what I should do right now is just go ahead and unmute you guys so that all the speakers don't have to worry about that. All right. And then the second person we are going to interview is Michelle. Now, is it Zeiser?
Zeiser. Yeah,
Zeiser.
Zeiser.
Okay, Zeiser. All right. Well, welcome, Michelle. Michelle is the founder of Ideate and head of sales at Wisdom Labs. So afterwards, once we do the interviews, we're going to have a Q&A, so hopefully you get a chance to actually ask questions. So with that, let's kind of get the ball going and have Kimberly tell us a little bit about the Chamber. Before we jump into that, just quickly what I'd like to do is 4 tips to get the most out of this webinar. First, try and eliminate any possible noise. If you think people are going to jump in, close the doors, put your phone away. You want to focus because, treat this hour like a mentor has come into your office or your house to help you move on to the next stage. And if that mentor is physically in your office, you would not be leaving them and going outside to do something else, right? So treat it, you're going to get out of this webinar what you expect out of it. So, if you expect to get a solution or a tip that's going to really help you, that's what you're going to get. And I highly recommend having a pen and paper. I'm going to have mine because I'm going to take notes and I'm going to learn something new and see how I can solve a problem I'm dealing with right now or a challenge that I'm dealing with. And decide what you want. So that's the third item. Decide what you want, because I know you haven't heard the interview yet, but keep in mind, what is it that you're trying to solve? Where are you in your business or your career, and what are you trying to solve for? And listen for that. And then fourth, if you're going to be listening in, that's great. Once this is recorded and uploaded, you can listen to it again, because there might be something that you haven't heard, or something you completely missed. And it happens all the time, guys, because we think we heard it all, but once we go back and listen to it, we realize that there were some things that we actually didn't hear. So that's okay. Those are the only 4 rules that I have, and the house rules that I have is just don't unmute yourself unless you're a speaker. Leave your video off if you have it on, and I don't really mind. It's okay with me. Questions, let's leave them to the end. If you have something you want to ask, either put it in the chat or just write it down, and then at the end, when we have 10 minutes, we can go over the questions. All right, so feedback. I would love your feedback. So feedback, I would like it constructed in just the following simple format. What did we do well, and what can we do differently? Feel free to email that to me at danny@chirku.com. All right, so with that, I'm going to stop sharing and hand it over to Kimberly.
Hi, everybody. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes, we can.
Wonderful. Well, I am coming to you live from the Woodinville Chamber at the Woodinville Visitor Center today. I have some teammates here in the office with me. So welcome to our February webinar. We are so excited that the Woodinville Chamber has kicked this off. And Danny, thank you for all that you're doing to make this a success.
Absolutely.
I'm so excited to hear from Nancy today and from Michelle and learn a lot. I have my pen and paper ready.
Nice.
I'll be taking lots of notes. Our chamber is a vibrant organization. We have over 305 businesses who are members of our organization. And that's anyone from a solo entrepreneur, a photographer, to a large organization, Chateau Saint Michel, Costco, and everything in between. Our goal here at the Chamber, our mission, is to promote, strengthen, and represent local business. And by local business, we really represent the greater Woodinville area. So Bothell, Kirkland, Redmond, we call that greater Woodinville. We have a number of businesses that are outside of Woodinville as well. We do that in a variety of different ways. We have an incredible, diverse website where we allow all of our members to have their own business page and keep that up to date. We have a robust social media, newsletter presence. We're always trying to get our members in the news in any way that we can possibly. And then one of the best ways that we excel is connecting our members with one another through our events, our networking events. We have an event actually every single week, and we hold those events at different times and with different formats because we know different businesses operate differently. So everything from a networking over a brew where people can grab a casual beer together to a more formal breakfast event or a luncheon event to an after hours. And then this webinar, something that we're pioneering. A lot of chambers are not doing something like this, and we want to let you come together, meet with chamber members and guests in a way that you've never done before, learn from one another, and we think that this is something that's going to set our chamber apart. On top of that, we also do a lot for our community to put our businesses in front of the entire Woodinville, Kirkland, Bothell community. We put on events like Celebrate Woodinville, which reaches over 10,000 people, a new Celebrate Woodinville Winterfest event, and a Salute Woodinville dinner and auction, which raises money for our chamber and helps connect business owners in a really upscale way. So we're a vibrant chamber, always a way to get involved for our businesses, for our members. And I think that more than anything, we're a pretty incredible community of people who come together and want to support one another. So I would encourage anyone who's joined us today or watching this later on our YouTube channel to reach out with questions.
Thank you, Kimberly.
Thank you, Danny.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, let's keep the ball going, and let's talk with Nancy now. Hey, Nancy.
Hi, Danny.
How you doing?
I am fine. How are you?
Good. Excited to be on this webinar?
Yes, this is a very exciting moment for me.
Awesome. So, I mean, I wanna let you kind of introduce yourself and tell people who you are and what you do.
All right. My name is Nancy Balin, And about a little over 7 years ago, I founded the Jaimeson Jones Memorial Scholarship in memory of my 20-year-old stepson who had just died of testicular cancer. Right after he died, inspired by him, I started to endow a scholarship that is for local North Shore students, graduating seniors, who have had a sibling with cancer at some time in their childhood. The reason for that is that if you have a child with cancer, it's not only emotionally devastating, but also financially devastating to the family. And Jaimeson knew that his 2 younger sisters did not have college funds because that money had gone towards treating him. The other thing that I do, my other mission, just as important, is that I provide early detection education about testicular cancer anytime I get a chance, from an audience of 1 to 2 dozen Boy Scouts I talked to a couple weeks ago, firefighters, school groups, athletic groups, anywhere I can corral a person to talk about the signs and symptoms of testicular cancer. It's been cured for 40 years, and it is 95% curable when it's caught early. Jaimeson had symptoms for over a year and was too embarrassed to tell us. And so when he was diagnosed the first time at age 14, he was already at stage 4. And it's ridiculous that anybody die of testicular cancer anymore. It also, unknown to almost everyone, if you are a male between 15 and 44 and you get cancer, this is the number 1 cancer it's likely to be. And nobody knows that.
Wow.
So because of Jaimeson's 2 journeys with cancer, his 2 younger sisters that he actually bequeathed his college savings to right before he died, and because of because I couldn't save my own stepson, my life's goal and my lifetime effort is to try to keep some other family from going through what ours is going through. And that's as far as the testicular cancer education side. And on the scholarship side, it's to acknowledge and help families who have endured childhood cancer, which is a life-changing experience. And to specifically help the siblings, because when you have a sick sibling, the attention necessarily needs to go to them. And the well siblings tend to get a little bit left behind. So my focus is on that.
Wow, that's awesome. So what is your mission exactly? Is it to create awareness and funding? And if it is, then how do you create awareness right now in the community?
Yes, it is to create awareness and to directly teach and to get funding for both efforts, both for the education efforts and for the scholarships. To answer your question, the way I do outreach is everywhere I can think of it. I am a member of the Woodinville Chamber, which is an amazing group that I'm just starting to get to know. I've been a member of the Greater Bothell Chamber, which is Bothell and Kenmore, for several years now. I started out locally as far as organizations by joining the Woodinville Rotary, which is the most amazing group as well. And I got connected with Woodinville Rotary because my scholarship is administered through the Scholarship Foundation of North Shore. And Woodinville Rotary is one of its sponsors and has been the whole 30 years they've been around. Okay.
Great. So
other ways.
Yeah.
Other ways that I get the word out there is through my website, which is familyjewels.education, through my publications and print matter. I have a brochure. I have a waterproof shower card. I have pamphlets. And my signature fundraising event is the Family Jewels 5K, which is coming up on March 10th. And I do a lot of promotion around that. Everywhere I can.
Tell us more about that. What is that the first time you're doing it?
No, this will be my 8th Family Jewels 5K.
Oh my goodness!
Jaimeson died October. Yes, so I've been around the bend a few times with the 5K, although it's improving every year and I learn every year. Jaimeson died October 7th of 2010 at the age of 20. His birthday is March 14th, which for mathematical geek people is 3.14, which is pi, and the mathematical pi. So Pi Day birthdays are a big deal.
Okay.
So what I decided right after he died is that I wanted to put on a 5K in his honor and his memory at his favorite place to run, which is St. Edward State Park in Kenmore. And I actually was able to put it together just a few months after he died at St. Ed's in March. And I quickly decided, inspired by Jaimeson, that I wanted to make this a fundraiser to endow scholarships for siblings of kids with cancer, because that's exactly what he did with his college savings. It's grown from 42 members of friends and family and his coaches and local friends to now our 8th year with multiple sponsors. Our locally famous Nut Hut, which is essentially a mobile self-check cancer detection station, which you have to see to believe. And we are also hashtag the only 5K with a pie table. I use Jameson's connection to pie because of his birthday, and also because I fed him a lot of pie to try to keep his weight up when he was in the middle of high-dose chemo. So every registrant gets a personal-sized pie in their swag bag, and we have a table full of pie for people to just sit down and enjoy.
That's beautiful. That's awesome. So tell us how can people register for the 5K?
Registration is open and active right now. They can just go to our website, which is a la testicular cancer, familyjewels.education, not edu, but education. And you'll see on there 3 separate live buttons about registering, getting more information about the 5K and registering. That will put you, if you click on one of those buttons, it will put you right into a registration platform.
Okay, and I'll make sure that those links are actually part of the YouTube channel upload as well, so that people watching it later, watching the recorded version of this, can just look at the comments section and get to the link.
Terrific. So that will be really helpful.
Yeah, absolutely. One question that I want to ask you, Nancy, is that, so you've been doing this for about 8 years, right?
I've been doing the 5K for 8. Yes, this will be 8 years.
Well, sorry, the foundation, maybe I missed that. How old is the foundation?
Well, the foundation has grown alongside the 5K because I was working full time at my last career until last summer. The 5K was really all I could do for most of the first several years, most of the first 6 or 7 years. Since I have decided to do this full time, I also have added some other fundraisers. We had a ball crawl in Kenmore on Brew Row. Instead of a pub crawl, it was a ball crawl. Have a wine walk in planning. I have an event coming up with What's Up stand-up paddleboard along the river in Bothell. And the foundation has just kind of followed along with the efforts I've made to both make sure I always had money for scholars, for local students, and to continually educate about testicular cancer. So we eventually acquired a logo and some printed materials, and I've just been building it step by step over the years since Jaimeson died.
And, you know, honestly, I wish I knew you back then, because I can't imagine the growth that you'd have to grow into, right? The personality growth and the mindset growth that you'd have to step into to achieve all of this work. So can you share some of that with us? Like what you actually had to overcome to get to where you are today?
Well, what I am fond of saying about my efforts is that I'm learning all the time. I'm making mistakes all the time and learning from those. I have always sought feedback about how was the 5K, how was the volunteer experience, how was the running experience, how did you feel about the course? And I seek advice wherever I need it and can find it. In fact, a few hours ago before this webinar, I sought out my nonprofit mentor, John Hughes, who is the executive director of the Scholarship Foundation of North Shore and a longtime member of Woodinville Rotary. I told him I was doing this for the first time ever, and what advice did he have for me? So it's been very important to me to have mentors of every kind. He's my nonprofit mentor. I've gone to other 5Ks to see how they run theirs. And also people that knew and loved Jaimeson. The reason, as I said, it's at St. Edward State Park is because I neglected to mention Jaimeson was a cross-country runner. And so it was natural to me to do an event that reflected him. And I decided a 5K, a trail run, because cross-country is typically trail, was the way to go to reflect him and to honor him. And then I learned lessons from things that don't go well. If it's cold in March, so after the first couple of years, I bought a few heaters. things like that. The Nut Hut I thought of maybe 3 or 4 years ago because I wanted a central focus. And people seem to be very enamored of the Nut Hut. What's a Nut Hut? And they come to see what a Nut Hut is. And once they're inside, they see posters about how to do a self-check, what the signs and symptoms are, what the risk factors are, what the statistics are. And I also always make sure to have a stack of business cards of a local urologist. So if they realize they do have a lump or a bump in their testicle, or they have pain, or one of them seems swollen, or they're a female and they know a man or a young man who has those symptoms, they can take that business card and they're not left helpless. They have a resource right away that they can call. So those are a few things I've done. I learn as I go.
That's awesome. That's awesome. You mentioned a lot of key things there that actually ensure success, which is fail forward, get a mentor, do things you haven't done before to achieve the result that you're looking for. And so, one question that I was thinking about is that now with you doing all this work and trying to create awareness and raising funds, if we had a magic wand, right, and we waved that magic wand, what would that result look like for you? What is it that you're looking for?
What I am trying to do, and it's interesting because I have been working on this since just after Jaimeson died. And what I realized a few years ago is this was not just my way to cope with grieving and my way to cope with the loss of an amazing young man who I loved and had a great relationship with, even, as a stepmom, not a biological mom. What it has turned into is a life's work for me. It's my mission now to try to save young men and to help put these kids through school. So what I am working towards, what I am working in, is a lifetime effort to make the Jaimeson Jones Memorial Scholarship a sustainable professional organization. And to do that, I need to grow it. And because right now, as I'm fond of saying, I am my scholarship and my scholarship is me. And which is why I just don't have time for a full-time job anymore because, and I used to joke about that. But the fact is, I really need to do this. I need to reach out to young men. I need to help these kids get through college. And we awarded 3 scholarships last May. I'm currently supporting 3 North Shore School District graduates who went to 3 of the 5 high schools that we now have in North Shore. They're in the 2nd semester of their freshman year. And that's a $40,000 commitment just to those 3 families because those scholarships are renewable for all 4 years of college. So I already have $40,000 committed to those 3 young people. And a very nice side comment is that each of their siblings is still alive and doing well. And in fact, one of them just had 2-year scans and he is still cancer-free. So that's amazing and great. Meanwhile, applications were due last week for this year's crop of graduating North Shore School District seniors. If I get another eligible scholar, I don't want to have to say, well, sorry, talk to me in 3 years when my first 3 scholars graduate. I want to always have funding for any student who's eligible. And all you have to do to be eligible is to graduate from a North Shore School District high school and have a sibling who had cancer or has it now. So way more than a goal. I mean, my mission is to make this sustainable and professional.
It's a mission.
To grow it. And to do that, yes. And I am not ever averse to seeking help for these 2 missions.
That's awesome. I can feel your passion about it. I can see your commitment to it, and what an amazing way to live life, because you could truly say, I do save lives. I make a difference in the world. I
hope so.
Yeah. No, it is a fact. So. It is a fact, right? Own it. It's a fact. So. Yeah. Thank you for coming on the webinar, Nancy. I actually learned something completely new today, is there anything that you would want from the business community if they could not contribute into the 5K?
Yes, I have, through talking with my mentors and doing research and just learning as much as I can these 7 years, there are different paths that local businesses, corporations can take to help us with our missions. One thing is that we are always welcoming of our corporate and business sponsors, either large companies or small companies, sponsorship in any of a number of ways. An obvious first way, or one way, is by financial donations. Financial donations of any kind from individuals or companies or corporations not only fund the scholarships, but also make sure that we have all the materials we need for education and stay up on the latest facts and make sure we always have publications for the public. Also, companies that could give matching donations would help, either a matching donation or a challenge grant, such as, we'll donate $10,000 if you can get another $10,000 to match it. And very exciting and brand new is that last week I was able to, I can say, acquire a very distinct possibility of being a partner with a documentarian videographer who is going to produce a public television documentary about Dr. Larry Einhorn, who is the oncologist who cured testicular cancer in 1977, back when he was a postdoc research student. So in order to do that, I'm going to need some funds to be able to partner with this filmmaker, who actually just emailed me today about, okay, let's see if we can get going on this. So that would be, that would be incredible. I could get nationwide promotion of testicular cancer education efforts, not to mention some promotion about this local area, since here we are in the North Shore School District, Bothell, Woodinville, Kenmore.
Yeah.
And the extent of the number of people that we could reach instead of just Nancy Balin, one guy at a time, would be astronomical.
That's amazing.
So, so that's my latest idea about what I can do to sustain and grow the Jaimeson Jones Memorial Scholarship.
Well, that sounds so exciting, and I am more than happy to take time and help you in any way I can. That really sounds like
this has been awesome. I appreciate this opportunity.
Absolutely,
so
absolutely.
Much.
This is exactly what it's meant to be. So
that's great.
Thank you, Nancy. Please stay on the call and listen in on our interview with Michelle, and we'll definitely see more of you soon.
Yes, I appreciate that. Thanks so much, and thanks to everybody listening.
You are welcome. All right. So now we are going, so we're on time, we're great, we're doing great. Now I'd like to talk with Michelle. So Michelle, previously built a business branch in Expedia from 0 to 5.5 million in 3 years. And she is currently the founder of Ideate and head of sales for Wisdom Labs, facilitating design thinking, awareness, neurolinguistics, and resilience programs to create lasting behavior change for individuals and organizations. She motivates clients to elevate their creative confidence through imagination expansion, exercises, and heightened levels of self-awareness to achieve greater personal and professional success. So, Michelle, I am really excited about having you here because I'm in the professional development space and I can't wait to hear some of your ideas, and B, just hear some of the successes you've achieved, and tying it into the theme of this webinar, which is how to build a multi-million-dollar company by mastering your most valuable asset, time. Every entrepreneur, every business owner I talk to will say, I just don't have enough time. I have so many things to do. I don't have enough time. So how do you even build a multi-million-dollar company like that? So Michelle, welcome.
Thank you. So first of all, it was Experis. So except it wasn't Expedia, but it was Experis, which is an IT consulting brand. And just to kind of give some backdrop to that, I had grown up in Iowa, but had moved away, lived in Seattle for a number of years and by way of Denver, and went back after 8 years and had to grow that from ground zero. And in growing that from ground zero, it took a lot of focus. And I would say, you're asking, how do you gain time back? You can't gain time, but it's really being focused and being true to the tasks that are going to help you accomplish whatever goals you set out for yourself. I had a little extra help in the fact that it was a new market. So if the market failed, it would end. So I had quite a bit of motivation, let's say, to keep the brand open and continue growing. And so what I focused on was, it's not just going to be me. I need to engage all of these. We're stronger together than we are independent, right? So there's many, many different IT consulting firms that were in the Des Moines market. I need to build relationships with those individuals to be able to bridge, how do I add value to what they've already established, and we're stronger together than we are independent.
Awesome. And so tell us about these days. What are you doing these days?
So these days I am doing executive coaching, which I absolutely love. I've been coaching sales executives for many, many years, sales leaders, VPs, SVPs, CEO types, for 22 plus years. And I get the freedom of being able to do that all across the world, which, because we use Zoom and Hangouts and all of these different technologies, it allows for you to build that brand across many different countries. And then subsequently, because when I left corporate, I kind of thought, how do I build multiple vehicles to be able to gain the same amount, if not more, revenue than what I had within an organization that I had been with for many years. And in doing that, I started finding that all of my kind of recalibration to figure out, who do I want to be when I grow up? What do I really want to make of this self-ideate brand? And I kind of went back to, I put my life on hold for many years to build other people's businesses. And that wasn't really a good way to do it. Now, highly successful, but I could have had some effectiveness between my life and my work. And what I recognize is, through mindfulness training as well as neurolinguistic programming, it's allowed for me to use different tools to support not only myself and help me from a learning perspective, but also help the massive clients that I work with. And then that kind of interluded into Wisdom Labs, because that's their platform. How do we create resilience within work groups and within organizations when we see all the burnout, we see individuals that really do not have healthy habits? And how do we create lasting change? Is by developing those healthy habits and feeding those endorphins through task accomplishment as opposed to procrastination.
So Michelle, tell us a little bit about you. What are some of your personal passions? Let us get to know the Michelle, the personal Michelle.
Absolutely. So my personal charge is, how do I help others? I really do believe everybody has strengths. And a lot of times we're so busy doing, we don't really reflect and kind of figure out, what are we really great at? And, or what are your superpowers? I like to say, everybody has superpowers. What are they? Let's identify them and let's work from that. I also work from kind of a premise that nobody's broken. And I just don't believe that. I think there are many different paths, many different ways to get to the same result. It's just identifying, what are you great at, then leading with that piece. And the rest of it is, again, you're stronger together than you are independent. Find other people that are really good at doing other things to support you and being able to accomplish the goals that you've set out.
Which is commonly known as the mastermind principle, right? Finding the specialized knowledge that it's not your favorite or you're not good at it, and having that person.
Yeah, hire somebody to help you, or have some kind of partnership with somebody that's really great at that, and they don't see it as hard work, where you might see it as, I just really don't, I don't have passion around that. I'm very passionate about, obviously, being outside and being in nature, because we live in such a beautiful place. And then the other thing that I really kind of hold true is to part of who I am is developing or identifying what your authentic self. I think so many times, especially in sales and number of years in sales, you put a veneer on and you may not be representing who you truly are by the way that you're presenting yourself. So how do you really figure out who that is? What's important to you beyond, hitting your numbers or hitting your sales targets?
What are some of the questions people can ask themselves to get to know their authentic self, or get familiar, closing the gap of that?
So a lot that I work with clients is,
Yeah.
what do you really want? And it's not just asking that question once, it's asking that question on repeat, like just almost repetitively, what do you really want? And then write it down. What do you really want? And write it down, and continue to go until you get to what you really want. Because we always have those little fruit, kind of pie in the sky, or things that we just have out there, or the things we think other people think we should have out there. And for me personally, it's like, no, what do you really want? If everything else was pulled away, if everything else in the world was static, what do you really want? And then it's, how do we accomplish that? How do we set goals and create tasks to accomplish that goal that you really, really want? And then again, having them kind of put a mirror up to reflect on, what am I great at? And I have a number of folks at work that have difficulty with their confidence, right? So they don't believe, or they have a belief pattern that is not congruent to them being successful. And the question I always ask them, well, when was the time you were most proud? Like, what was the time that you felt the best about what you've done? And can you gather that feeling? Can you remember what it looked like, to kind of build their power pose, or build their confidence, and create an anchor to a space where you are at your optimum in this? How do we get you to see that and replace that with what you really want?
Yeah.
And be able to create then a path to attaining that.
So in explaining it to someone who's not really familiar with this concept, would it be similar to, for example, I used to play soccer. I loved soccer. I was a good player. And here I am, I'm running my own business, but I'm not hitting the sales targets that I'm looking for to hit. How would you recommend that I would kind of merge those two experiences together?
Well, I always like to do an assessment, is to identify what's the reality, because we have a tendency to tell stories, right? I believe everybody has little gremlins, and the gremlins either say positive or negative things, right? And then from that, we start to create assumptions, and the assumption is when we're making judgments, or we're not really paying attention to the landscape of what reality is. We're just assuming, and then we make interpretations based on that, or create the story, and then we're all working from limiting beliefs. So if I didn't make the track team when I was in 7th grade, or I didn't make the football squad when I was a freshman in high school, those types of things then color all of our experiences. And what I like to get people to kind of get clear on is, what is the true reality? So you know how people generalize and say, well, it's horrible. Oh gosh, my sales are in the tank, and da-da-da-da-da. And then you ask a couple questions. Well, I did have a good call, and it changes that dynamic. So helping them to kind of get through the minutia, to figuring out, hey, you know what? I've got some great things on the horizon. How do I take those little nuggets and make them into solid deals? Yeah. And what am I going to do it all by myself, or am I going to need to have reinforcements? And how do I start to design a path and create the right story, create the right anchor to be able to accomplish that?
So that's great. If we tie this back to the theme of the webinar, which is, time, that is, I'm aware that that's the most important asset any entrepreneur or small business owner has. What can we do, let's say from right after the call, right after the webinar, what can we start doing to start maximizing our time by creating more value or creating bigger results?
So what I would recommend to anybody that is having difficulty finding time is to start calculating and actually logging every single moment of your day. So every time that you're doing tasks, or you're getting up in the day, really being mindful to, okay, what do I do between 5 a.m. when I get up and 10 a.m. in the morning? And then what do I do from 10 to 2? And put them into chunks and really identify, is it really time that I'm losing, or is it I get sucked into things that really aren't productive? because we all have comfort zones. We all have things we would rather be doing, like getting into email, social media, or, reading the news, or going for, massive hikes during the middle of the day, or golfing, or whatever it is that really helps you from a self-care perspective, but maybe doesn't help you from a production perspective, if that makes sense. But by outlining and kind of capturing what are you actually doing, almost like using MyFitnessPal to capture your calories, using your calendar to capture what are you actually doing each day. And then let's really dive into, is that productive time? When I'm working with a lot of startups or individuals that are building a business for the first time, they want to have, $1 million, but then they want to golf every afternoon. Well, that's not really realistic. And it's having that conversation with yourself of, yes, okay, so if I work three days and I do all the networking events and I do all the calls that I said I was going to do, and I, had all of my tasks accomplished, then could I go golf? Absolutely. But do I get to go golfing every day and then I'm not doing the additional activities to drive the business to the point that I really want? Then we need to have a different conversation. So I also think you can't create time, right? We get 24 hours every single day. So it's, how do you maximize that and be real mindful of, and know. So when I think of mindfulness, it's like being aware you're going through the motion, or you're creating noise. It's being able to say, oh, I'm in LinkedIn and I've been there for a half an hour. What in the world just happened there, right? And being able to pause and say, that's not effective. So then I'm going to switch gears and I'm going to go somewhere else and I'm going to be more productive. Unless you're using LinkedIn for your outreach and those types of things. There are positives to that via link, doing messaging and things like that. But being real mindful, is that productive time, or is that just I'm surfing the web? If that makes sense.
It does. Now, here's where I feel like some people get stuck. We go through this really extremely healthy exercise, which actually is a huge awareness, becomes a huge awareness when you look at being honest with yourself and you look at, okay, where am I spending all my time? And you log all of that. And then at the end of the week, you look at that and you assess it. And you realize that, okay, like half those things I should have probably not done. I could have done something better, more productive. But then even with that awareness, it doesn't seem to change, because there's this, subconscious programming of me just getting used to doing these things. I've been doing them actually for months, if not years. I've been doing them.
You've got a habit.
I've got a habit, right? So then now what? So now I know what habits I have that are not productive. What do people do from there?
So I'm from the school of thought, don't beat yourself up, right? So that happened. Okay, let's start now, right? Because I don't have a magic wand to reverse yesterday or earlier today. So don't beat yourself up, because that's not negative gremlin going off in your head, and that's not productive use of time. What I recommend is creating, again, back to what's my goal, whatever the goal is, and goals, if you have multiple goals, what are the actions or tasks that I need to accomplish daily, weekly, monthly, quarterly, annually, to be able to accomplish and hit my goal, and then have a reward system for when those tasks and accomplishments, those daily tasks. So I like to live from a reward space. I know I do better with a carrot than a stick, right? So how do I create more carrots on a daily, weekly, monthly, annually basis to be able to then get to my goal accomplishment, but also I feel good about it. And in that, how do you afford time for self-care? So I'm a huge proponent of, we use maybe just a small percentage of our brain. We use our logic side of our brain all of the time. And how do we then engage our subconscious is by creating space to be quiet and to find something that really relaxes you. If it's going for a walk in nature, if it's, for me, it's going to the gym and getting some energy and excitement, or sitting quietly and meditating, whatever it is for you, whatever that quiet is, or putting yourself to sleep. Like I've done this before on many occasions when I'm going to do facilitations. I put myself to sleep with a complex problem, and like really have your subconscious brain work on that while you're sleeping, that you can come up with the great ideas as to how you're going to present and facilitate in the
That's awesome.
classroom. Those are some other little things I do personally to kind of keep me focused.
Didn't Einstein do that or something? I think he was
I
taking
don't
lots
know
of
who
naps.
did that, but it works for me. But seriously, it's pausing, because when you're always doing, you're never being, you're never thinking, because you're always on to the next thing. And I think we create a lot of chaos because we're afraid of silence, or we're so used to having noise. And how do we allow for silence to happen and just be okay with it and see what comes up? That's when the mirror for a lot of leaders comes up, when there's not a whole lot going on.
Yeah. Awesome. So there's a lot of goodies in there. You got to ask yourself repeatedly, what do I really want? What do I really want? What do I really want? And then identify the tasks or actions you need to take to achieve that. And then be honest with yourself. Look at your calendar, see what where you're spending your time. And if it turns out that you're not spending it in the right place, like Michelle says, don't be hard on yourself. It's already done. You can't change it. Now it's just building a new habit of getting used to the new actions that give you the results you want. And I love the idea of rewards. I actually honestly don't bake in that aspect too much. And I think it's exciting to put in all kind of little rewards for myself daily, weekly, and monthly if I'm achieving those things that I set out to achieve. So I'm going to implement that one. So what's one of the books that you felt was a fundamental impact on you as far as maximizing your productivity or really getting you to focus on doing and acting on the right things?
So it's kind of funny because I brought it out here. I don't actually have a whole lot of, I do. I have a whole library of real books, but I have such an audio file and an online file now that I actually have this one in print. So this is fantastic. So I actually got to see Jack Canfield, and he signed the book, The Success Principles. And I was in Denver, Colorado, and I was kind of questioning, well, what do I want to do when I grow up? Because I've had that conversation with myself a lot. And it allowed for me to kind of recognize, hey, you're not at your maximum. You're not at your optimum. And you have so much more to offer. And this is, 10 plus years ago. Yeah. It was kind of nice and refreshing because I've gone back to this multiple times. I actually do have it on audio file, and I do have it on Kindle, so I can get to it any place in time that I have, just to reflect back on, hey, these are really solid points as to how to stay congruent to who you are and how you want to show up in the world. Because I do work with myself and others a lot on how do you want to show up? How do you want to make that impact to others in this world? And how do you want to support others in this world? So
Jack Canfield, Success Principles.
Absolutely.
Okay.
And that made a difference in my life.
And do you talked about listening to audiobooks, and it sounds like that's what you're more into right now?
Well, I drive, I like to walk, I like to have content coming through to me. And so I do have what my current, I'm halfway through Altered Traits by Richard Davidson and Daniel Goleman, which I absolutely recommend. I'm a quarter way through High Performance Habits by Brendan Burchard. Yeah. And then I just finished Start With Why by Simon Sinek. I highly recommend that to anybody that is trying to produce, get product into development or get product into consumers. 10% Happier by Dan Harris is this hysterical book, and it's a nice little segue into mindfulness. And then I Can't Wait to Start Big Potential by Sean Aker. Sean Aker is absolutely one of my favorite TEDx. He's got a TEDx out there. He's the Happiness Quotient is one of his first books. Phenomenal writer.
Awesome. So here's for every listener, and I want you to consider that here's this person that's successful at what she does, but yet she's reading multiple books, she's listening to multiple books, and I'm assuming you're doing this on a daily basis, right, Michelle?
Absolutely. And I'm going back to school. So I'm a huge avid learner, and I recommend, especially whatever stage in your life, go out and learn something. There's Udemy, there's Coursera, edx.org. I went back to get my master's, but I used to take all of those different courses. There's Linda courses, to be able to get me to really see that there's more than just like my belief system or my perception or what I think. Because I know what I think. I want to know what else is out there. And this is a huge vehicle to be able to do that.
Right. And you kind of talked about it, because you said we all have limiting beliefs. And I believe in that, because, you know, it's limited to the perspective or the experiences I've had in my life. Does that mean I am familiar with everything in the world? Absolutely not. So, you know, having a group of mentors or a group of, you know, partners that I can tap into and say, hey, you know, Michelle, what do you think of this idea? Do you see it the same way I see it? Or Nancy, what do you think of this? I can't seem to find a way. And Nancy will come up with a solution. I might say, oh my God, I didn't even think of that. And
exactly.
And I love that. It's continuously learning, which is one of my passions too. I feel like if we're not growing, we're dying. And I don't care if you're 95 or 5 years old. You gotta continue to learn, so that you can feel fulfilled. Because I think life is gonna, you know, at a very basic level, is two things: giving and learning. So, you know, you get to achieve it.
I love that you bring in the 5-year-old and the 92-year-old. I always think of mentors. Like, I've learned so much from 5-year-olds or 2-year-olds, and just watching them and how they experience the world, all the way up to, before my grandfather passed, my 92-year-old grandfather. It's like the whole gamut of what you can learn in this world that you didn't know is out there if you're paying attention and you're curious enough. I'm an extra curious person too, so that might have something to do with it.
Well, absolutely. I mean, one of the people that I speak with at a retirement home, she's 93, and she says that curiosity is better than knowledge, and so I believe in that.
Yep.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Michelle. That's definitely a lot of good information here we can apply. And again, a reminder to the people watching this and listening to this: please don't, you know, watch this and say, "Oh, yeah, that was good," and move on. Write down some ideas you're going actually to implement, and if you just implement them for the next 30 days, consciously you're going to have to implement them for the next 30 days, but afterwards they're going to become a part of your habits, part of who you are. So, as simple as asking yourself, "What do I really want?" Isn't that amazing? I mean, you wake up in the morning, you just ask yourself, what do I really want? And it aligns you better with what you should be doing, who you should be with, and really get all that noise out of the way. We have so much noise these days, right, Michelle? We have emails, text messages. Exactly. As amazing as it is it's literally controlling some people's lives.
It does. But that's how you can kind of create grace and space to say, I'm going to read my email for an hour and a half, and then I'm going to shut it down. And you can do that if you choose to. It's just when we choose to spend all day in the email and not doing the things we said we were going to do. But again, give yourself grace and say, hey, you know, I don't want to do that again. I don't want to repeat that. So how do I then create fail-safe to keep myself from doing that?
I always love to ask people, what are their morning habits? So just, you know, looking at the first hour, once you open up your eyes, what do you normally do, Michelle?
I have to have coffee, and I love coffee. But after I have coffee, or when I get the coffee, I typically go in and try to read the news so I know what's going on in the world. It really is important to me. I can't stand it when I find out at 10 o'clock in the morning something happened, and I'm like, how do I not know this? This is so totally up my alley. I also do my posting on social media, and then I get started with either client calls, because I have calls all across the country, so I can start as early as 5 in the morning, which I do, or go to the gym, because I do believe those, and then breakfast, right? I believe in having a real set schedule, because that really helps you elevate your game, and it puts you in the right frame of mind. It gets you into a space that you're untouchable.
Nice. Any last minute asks for the business community that you have?
So I really would like everyone to kind of figure out how to help Nancy, because I think that cause that you have is amazing. I'm actually on the board of the American Cancer Society. So when I heard you talking, I'm like, this is so amazing. This is fantastic. I'm super excited. So I would ask that the community really get behind, and I know I've got a 14 or a 15 and a 13-year-old stepsons that we will be at St. Edward's Park, because that's in our neck of the woods, to help and support, because I think that is absolutely remarkable. For myself personally, the only thing I ask people is find a mentor, find someone, anyone and then like share back with them. Find somebody that's going to really be true to you, or find a coach that you truly, you're aligned with their values. And I really do believe in finding people that are aligned with your values, that align with your goals, and that you feel comfortable with. So find someone, because I honestly don't believe we're supposed to do this all on our own. I believe we are stronger together than we are independently. So find somebody to step into this world together. And that's where the success happens.
Yeah, that's absolutely amazing. Everyone deserves a coach, every single person. I don't care who they are, what they're doing. It's just a way for us to get out of our head, because sometimes when we're just stuck in our head, we can get in a vicious cycle and get in a really bad place and stay there and not really see how there are hundreds of ways out. But a coach, a mentor will actually do that. So absolutely awesome advice there, Michelle. All right, so we have a few minutes left. Anybody in the audience wants to ask a question, you can either type it in the chat, or we could even have you unmuted. And let's see. Well, and I guess we can close it off if there are no questions. We can close it off with one last question for Michelle. What accomplishment are you most proud of?
So this is an interesting one. If you asked me probably 6 years ago, it would have been wildly different. But right now, I'm so proud of the fact that I have 2 stepkids that I get to help model how to show up in this world. I put my life on hold, and I didn't have children, and I worked myself just tooth and nail every day to compete. And I'm most proud of having 2 little minds to mold and be able to be a guiding force for. I did not think that was possible. This is what is, everything's possible if you open your eyes and you allow that in. If you're present enough to the possibility, it is possible.
Beautiful. Awesome. Being a role model. I love it. So thank you, Michelle. Thank you, Nancy. You were both awesome.
Thank you, everyone.
And until next episode, we'll see you next time. Bye-bye.
Thank you.